Hi friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to be making pad thai because a couple of weeks ago I asked you on Facebook what you'd want to see next, and overwhelmingly that's what people said. I know that several of you have had it over at my house, and so it's a very fun dish to make. It's perfect for a 6 to 8 person dinner party or a date night or a special birthday party because it's a little bit involved but completely worth it. Now the way I make it, not particularly authentic. I have some authentic ingredients, but if you really want to learn how to make authentic pad thai, I would turn this off. I'm sure there's a button down there somewhere. And go get this book, 101 Asian Dishes You Need to Cook Before You Die by Jet Tila. He's a great chef, and this is a really fun book. Or I would check out David Thompson, who's a leading authority in Thai food. He's got a lot of cool stuff in here. Or the other book that I really like is Night Market. So those are the three sources I would check out if I wanted to learn how to make something besides white girl pad thai, which is what we're going to make today. When I make pad thai, I generally are making it for a bigger party. And so I wanted the biggest skillet I could find, and I found the skillet at Costco. It's a 14-inch skillet, cost about $30 at Costco. And I do realize it is a non-stick skillet, which I generally don't recommend because of all the controversy around Teflon. The non-stick surfaces today are better than they used to be, and they don't have any of the PFAOs, but over time they do degrade. So if this is something that you don't want to cook with, you of course have the option of a stainless steel, or what's even better is if you have a seasoned wok and you have some experience using it. I don't have one. But today, because I don't have a burner to do in front of the camera, I actually went to Kitchen Caboodle's website and I ordered this electric wok. And I did a test cook last night with this electric wok, and it's actually really nice. Now this is a titanium infused nonstick surface, and it worked great. The other nice thing about this wok is it has a great temperature control on it. So this is what we're going to be using today, so I could do it with you on camera. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the ingredients that you need. Okay, let's talk about rice noodles. Now, when you go to the store to get rice noodles, what you're looking for is something called a rice stick noodle. And they're measured in a couple of different ways. They can be measured as a small, medium, large. They're shown that on the back. Or they can actually be measured in millimeters. So the ones that I like to use are about 5 millimeter, and those are the ones that are soaking today. And they've got lots of other kinds of rice noodles at the store too. Some of these are used in different kinds of dishes. Some of these are used in soups. And you might think that I bought one of each to show you, but that's not what happened. Maya didn't have any pictures on their website, so I just got one of each so I could get the right one, and we got one of the right ones. So lucky us, that's what we're going to cook today. So what else are you looking for when you go to the store? Well, I did a spreadsheet last night of all of the pad thai recipes in these books and also some of the popular ones online, and I can tell you what they all have in common. They all have rice noodles. They all have egg, although you would leave that out if you're cooking for a vegan. They all have a source of protein. That can be tofu. I usually use shrimp. They all have bean sprouts, which in Asian food is generally mung beans. They all have a source of onions. Now, I use green onions, but you can also use garlic, chives, or shallots. They all have either paprika or chili powder in them, or some combination of those. I use paprika. They all have peanuts, and they all have fish sauce. This is probably the most controversial ingredient because there's so many different kinds of fish sauce and so many different quality of fish sauce. I happen to like a brand called Three Crabs, and the other brand that I like is Red Boat. And the nice thing about Red Boat is you can actually find that at Trader Joe's now. So those are the two brands that I think taste really good and are really high quality. If you are cooking for vegans, I'd go ahead and get some coconut aminos. And this is especially good if you're on a restricted diet like a Whole30 or something, because they do allow these. Also, the other thing that I saw online is that you can use some Bragg's if you don't have any of these. Also, all of the ingredients, they all contain lime and they all contain sugar. Now, beyond that, there's a lot of customization. Some of the more authentic recipes have dried shrimp in them. Some of the more authentic recipes have tamarind paste in them, or tamarind water, or tamarind concentrate. Sometimes I use this. I'm not going to use it today. It has a little bit of a sour taste, and I like the sauce the way that I made it last night. And a lot of the authentic ingredients also have radish in them. And if you have any friends that have a taste for really spicy food, you can also put some hot sauce in it. There are a couple of things you're going to want to think about ahead of time. First of all, prepping your veggies ahead of time is a really good idea because then you can just cook quickly. You'll need a large carrot, a bunch of cilantro, and a handful of basil, about 3 cups of mung beans, and about 5 or 6 green onions. So it's good to just get that all chopped up. You're also going to want to juice some limes and also cut some limes up. And then if you're using frozen shrimp, you're going to want to defrost that in the refrigerator overnight because the slower these guys defrost, the better quality they are. And I usually figure about 3 shrimp per person, but if you're using chicken or pork in this, you can do more or less depending on how much your friends like shrimp. My friends really like shrimp. And back to the rice noodles. This is a pound of rice noodles. So those packages I was showing you earlier, this is a whole package. They do get bigger because they're made out of rice. So what you do is you put the package in a bowl or a container, and you just cover it in water. And it's funny because when you look online and you look at the recipes, it can be anywhere from 10 minutes to overnight, an hour, 2 hours. It's fine. Really, all what you're trying to do here is make sure that they're floppy and pliable so that when you put them in here, they don't break when you start to cook them. So this is a whole package, and this feeds 6 people if that's all that you're going to have, 8 people if you have other food. I am going to cook this whole thing just because I made the recipe for the whole thing, and I'll find some people to give it to, and I'm sure Vicki will show up at some point and get some. Okay, so here's the fun part. So the one thing that I do that is really not authentic is I actually like to do my proteins a little bit ahead of time and then pull them out, and that just gives me more control over how they finish up. Experienced chefs, especially with this type of food, generally have a very hot wok, and they're able to put things in and push it aside and really arrange things to cook properly. But I like to put mine in, take them out, so I have more control over it. So the first thing we're going to do is the egg. If you had a real wok and not just a nonstick wok, as much as I like this is actually really nice, you'd probably be using peanut oil because this has a very high smoking point, and most of this kind of cooking is done at a super high temperature. So I could use that, or I could use, because this isn't really, really high, I'll probably just use a little bit of avocado oil. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm so excited. It's the first time we've actually really cooked something in front of you. And I've been actually trying to figure out how to get an overhead camera, so that's coming. Be patient. All right, so I'm going to put a couple of eggs in here. And woohoo! Oh, those cook fast. I'm also going to put in 6 cloves of garlic. That's a lot of garlic, I know, but the nice thing about this is it seasons the eggs. Okay, so that's cooking really fast. I'm actually going to cook that. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. Okay, cool. So you can see how fast that went. And I'm going to pull these out of here so that it doesn't, oh, I had a bowl and I couldn't find it. So I'm going to pull that out of here. So we're going to add this more towards the end. And so that the eggs don't get like totally destroyed, because I've done this before when you couldn't even recognize the eggs. They were just all over the place. All right, so pull that out here. So that's what that looks like, and I'm going to put that aside. And then the next thing that I'm going to do that an actual chef wouldn't do if they were doing this in a real wok is I'm going to put my shrimp in, and I'm going to cook it about halfway, and I'm also going to pull that out. I stand by this method because it really does give you a lot of control over how done they get, and you don't want to overdo your shrimp because they get really rubbery. So I've got these in here. I wish you could see them. You know that shrimp are pretty gray when they're not cooked, and they start to turn just a little bit pink before I pull them out. You can actually use fully cooked shrimp in this recipe. I would just throw them in at the end and warm them up. And you can also get shrimp and devein them and deshell them yourself. I usually get ones where the tail is still on but the shell's off, because that is a lot of work, although I don't mind doing it in some cases. So I'm going to let these cook for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to cut back here when we're almost done. So I've got the shrimp about halfway cooked. They're just starting to turn pink. I don't know if you can see that. They're not gray anymore, but they're also not fully pink, so they're about halfway cooked. And so I have my egg, my garlic, and my shrimp in here, and I'm just going to pull this out because sometimes it takes a while for the rice noodles to cook, so I don't want these to get destroyed. All right, I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit, and I'm going to put a little bit more oil in here. Now, because you are cooking wet noodles against oil, you definitely want to have them be well drained, because water and oil don't like each other very much. So I did drain these off earlier, so I'm going to put these in here. Also, if you're making these for a big party and you do more than one package, or even this is a lot to do at once, you can also do them in batches. I've done that. That works great. So what I have now is a very white noodle that's floppy. And what I'm looking for is a noodle that's just starting to get a little bit translucent and starting to tighten up a little bit. And one of the things that people really don't like about rice noodles is that once they start to tighten up and get cooked, they start to seize up and clump up because they're made out of rice. And that's the thing that's kind of scary about this recipe. And that's why I do the other thing that is not the least bit authentic, and that is I use some chicken broth in it. Just to make sure they don't clump up. And I usually do my sauce ahead of time, but I got so excited about doing this for you, I didn't. So I'm going to do my sauce really quick. And also you should do your sauce ahead of time so that your sugar dissolves fully. So this is 4 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using granulated sugar. A lot of people think you should use brown sugar or palm sugar. Brown sugar because it's similar to palm sugar and that's more authentic. I'm just using granulated. I'm doing the juice of 2 limes, which is about 4.5 tablespoons, so the juice of 2. And I'm doing 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. And I'm doing a giant heaping tablespoon of paprika. And then I'm going to stir those up and let it just dissolve a little bit because I did this in the wrong order. Yay me. There we go. Okay. Now these are, I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit because that's a lot of noodles. Now these are starting to tighten up a little bit, and they're starting to change color a little bit, and they're starting to change texture a little bit. And you can tell because it's a lot softer than it was before. Ugh, now it's on me. Okay, and I'm going to go back and put just a little bit more chicken broth in here. Mostly I'm just trying to keep these loose, keep them from globbing up and getting weird. And that is something you will see in very few recipes. I did see it in a few, but not very many people do it. Okay, so now I'm going to put my sauce in. And you're going to cook this until you're going to make sure that all the sauce goes through your noodles and that they start to turn a little bit reddish brown from the paprika. And you want this to get nice and soaked into the noodles. Okay, I'm going to show you what this looks like. I wish I had an overhead camera. That's what it looks like. They're not quite cooked yet because they're going to get a little smaller when they're fully cooked, but they're looking good. The texture's looking good. They're a little more translucent. They're not as white. They're a little bit stickier than they were when they were just soaked. So this is actually starting to look edible. As soon as it starts to look edible like that, I put in a few things in here. I put in about half of my mung beans, so that's about 1.5 cups in there. I like to get those nice and cooked. I save a few for the garnish. I also like to put a handful of shredded carrot in here, and I save some of that for the garnish. And then I also like to put in a little bit of my cilantro in here. There you go. And I save a bunch of that for the garnish too. This is most of a bunch of cilantro. I'm not sure you need quite that much. It's probably 3/4 cup packed. You probably need closer to half a bunch. All right, so we're gonna get that stuff all in there. And see now, look how it's starting to look. It's like real colorful and pretty, and it smells really good. All right. And so the next thing that happens is as soon as this looks like something that you would put on your plate, like when you ordered it from a Thai restaurant, you go like, that kind of looks like the noodles that I would eat. And I mean, you know, taste one. So, oh my God, that's good. Actually, you know what? I eat it just like it is. So if you're all by yourself, you can put your hands in there. If you're cooking for other people, don't be like your Aunt Cindy, because I would never put my hands in there if I were cooking for other people. What a dork. All right. Now, because these noodles, and they are starting to tighten up a little more, so I'm going to put a little bit more of this in there. Don't ever be afraid of putting more moisture in something that's rice-based. Don't ever be afraid of turning the heat down. Don't ever be afraid of taking the whole thing off the heat if you get scared or it starts to look weird. And I am not afraid of putting more chicken broth in here if it's not looking good or if it's starting to turn into a giant mess. But this is looking pretty good. All right, I'm going to put a little more in here. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add my proteins back in. I'm going to make a little well in the middle. And I'm going to put some of the green onion down to kind of protect the shrimp from the heat. And put about half my green onion down. And then I'm going to put my shrimp back in. And get it as close to the bottom as you can. Get it on top of those green onions. And then I'm going to fold these noodles over the shrimp and the green onions. Yes! Yes! Okay, and then I put the lid on. I don't know if I should turn the heat up or down. I think since it's cooking pretty quickly, I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. And what I'm looking for now is to sort of get a beautiful crust on the bottom so that when I flip it over, it's a little bit brown on the edges and then nice and juicy in the bottom. And so I'm going to let this cook for just a few minutes. If you're not super experienced with this recipe, then just, take a wooden spoon and pick it up and see if it's getting a little crusty on the bottom. If you don't like it crusty, just cook it until you can put a noodle in your mouth and go, that tastes like something I'd pay for in a restaurant, and then you're all done. So as soon as this gets to where I want it, I'm going to put it on a big old platter and I'm going to show you how to garnish it. The beauty of this wok, which I just got and started using last night, is it has a detachable bottom, so you can flip that over there. So that's kind of cool. That's actually a really nice wok. I'm really, really glad I bought it. I mean, I got it for you, but oh well, now I'm going to have to live with it. So anyway, that's what pad thai looks like when it's done. The shrimp are beautifully done. They're not too rubbery. Usually when I flip it over in a pan, I can get a few crusties in here. There are some crusties in here, but they're pretty hard to see. Use a cookie sheet, use a big bowl, use a salad bowl, use whatever. It actually works on a cookie sheet too. So then when it comes off of here, I will put some bean sprouts over the top, and then I'll put some green onions on it. And then I will put a little bit of shredded carrot there, and I will sprinkle some cilantro on it. And then what I do is I actually serve it with a little bit of basil because it gives it a really, really beautiful flavor. And then I will sprinkle it with some peanuts. This is my gadget corner today. Do you have one of these nut crushers with a little blade in it? Actually works really great. They're not very expensive either. So then put some peanuts over the top. Probably should have done that before the basil. Oh well, nobody's perfect. Okay, now I'll put the basil back there. Okay, and then what I usually do is squeeze a little bit of lime over the top for some freshness. And what you're going to want to do is serve these limes either on your serving platter here or in little finger bowls so that your guests can squeeze more lime over it, because the more lime the better. This is really, really good with a lot of lime on it. And that's it. That is pad thai. That is how I make it. And I hope you make it. And if you guys have any questions, I know it was a little bit more complex than the other things I've been doing. So if you need help, or if you have questions, or you want to call me up on the phone and say it's going terribly wrong, please tell me what to do, or whatever. And as soon as this whole thing is over, come on over and have some pad thai at my house. Okay, thanks for stopping in. I'll see you soon.